Hello, my name is Randy Von Bosie, and this is Kaysville Condensed. I attended the December 21st City Council meeting, so you wouldn't have to. You're welcome. This last City Council meeting was the last one to be held with Mayor Hyatt and Councilperson Snell and Councilperson Lee on the council. I just wanted to take a minute to express my sincere appreciation for the service that each of these individuals has given. The last 10 years in our city has come with an immense amount of growth, and each of these outgoing public servants had a big impact on how that all unfolded. Mayor Hyatt helped brand the city in a way that gave direction to the growth. Councilwoman Lee stepped in and asked some of the harder questions that needed to be asked during this time of change, and Councilman Snell stepped in when a vacancy came up to bring a knowledge base that would provide context for many of the decisions that were being made. Kaysville has been very lucky to have these good people who are willing to give so much of their time and energy and effort to giving back to our community. So very sincerely, thank you, Mayor Hyatt, Councilwoman Lee, and Councilman Snell. The agenda this week was relatively short, but there were a few important topics that were discussed. If you look at the agenda item number 5 had to do with our new city attorney who began work in the city this past Monday. Under our current organizational chart, all department heads work under the direction of the city manager, who then reports back to the city council. However, since the city attorney will be responsible for a broad range of subjects and subject matter, the council wanted to make sure that he was empowered to speak freely on any subject without feeling concern about his job status. So while hiring the city attorney will still follow the same process as other department heads, where a candidate is selected and recommended by the city manager, the dismissal of the city attorney will have a slightly different take, where instead of that being under the purview of the city manager, the dismissal of the city attorney will fall directly under the city council. So that is an interesting change to our organizational chart. As we go on in the agenda, you'll see there were a couple plat approvals that were brought before the council. One in particular has been before the council many times before. It is the plat of the Creek Hollow Subdivision at 650 East and 100 North. This land first came before the council back in May because there is an easement, a city easement that runs through that land. That basically means that it's land that the city owns that we have kept in our ownership for one purpose or another. As the owners of the land to the north and south of this easement decided to sell, the developer came before the city council to request that the easement be deeded over to this development, just to make the design of the development flow better. This approval was granted back in May, contingent on a final plat approval. There were some concerns going into that of flooding and also access to some of the neighbors in the east. This property in particular, within the last couple of years, the city has actually put money into a drainage system right on this property because a neighbor to the west was getting flooding from the easement coming into our home. And so the city has invested money here, and the neighbors were concerned that with the amount of water that is retained on this land, that developing would just further complicate that problem. And also taking away the easement would take away some access that some neighbors to the east had to their property. They've been maintaining that easement for the city for a number of years, and so it has been difficult for them to watch this process go through and see that access taken away, and also have these concerns about flooding. So the city has sent it back to the developer, and over the last many months there's been many engineers looking at this, and there's been geotechnical studies done, and the final plat came before the city council. It was designed to raise the property up so that the drainage will flow into the private lane along this property and into a catch basin that is maintained by the HOA. From there, it will flow into a detention basin. As the council comment period began, Councilmember Page went over 5 concerns that the council had asked the developer to address in the final plat. These 5 concerns were access to that eastern property, addressing the flooding concerns, making sure that there were no privacy concerns along the western property line, making sure that there was a geotechnical study done. And originally the plat was presented with 6 lots, and they wanted that taken down to just 5. So the developer has been working on all of that and going back and forth with the neighbors and through the planning commission and trying to get that final plat in place. As this came before the city council, many council members expressed a feeling that all of the conditions were met and that they felt comfortable moving forward with it. However, Councilmember Adams expressed concern that some of the engineers had recommended a 15-inch pipe be put into the flood drainage system there, but their final plat only has a 12-inch pipe on it. It was explained that while the city ordinance does require 15-inch pipe on city streets, in private developments that requirement doesn't hold, and so there was no violation of city ordinance in putting in a 12-inch pipe into that final plat. This plat was approved with a 4-to-1 vote, and the reason I have gone into so much detail is that this property development ties into concerns that others might have about flooding in new developments. A question that's being asked a lot right now is if flooding on existing homes happens after new development goes in, who holds responsibility for that? Is it the city for approving the plat, or is it the developer for not planning better, or is it the engineers for not seeing the potential dangers there, or is it the new homeowner because they now take responsibility for that land? It is a very complicated issue that doesn't have as clear of an answer right now, so it's just something to be aware of as you may have developments going in near you, or if you might be building yourself, that's something you might want to seek clarity on as far as where your responsibility lies. As we go on in the agenda, the last plat discussion came before the council last week for preliminary approval. This subdivision is at 689 South and 550 East, and it has brought attention due to the neighbors' desire to have a gate installed to decrease the amount of traffic flowing onto 650 South. During the public comment period, many of the neighbors expressed concerns about many different issues, but some of those are that there'll be an assisted living center going in, and some of those residents might be out during peak traffic times. They're concerned about those danger issues. They're concerned that these roads were not built for traffic mitigation, like stop signs or stop lights. There also is some concern that some of these homeowners, when they originally built, were told by the developer that 550 East would not be a through street. And also, as I discussed last week, there are residents living along this route that have disabilities, and having increased traffic would impede their standard of living. The neighbors expressed a desire to find compromise. As the council began discussing this, the overriding feeling expressed was that we need to stick to a larger city plan that allows for multiple points of access into larger neighborhoods. Multiple access points are important to city living, so that if one route has to be closed for a reason, residents can still access their homes. It also allows for better traffic flow. Council members expressed that there are many people who would love to have a private road and not have to deal with traffic, but it is not possible to grant that for everyone, and that a larger picture has to be considered as to what is best for the long-term view of the city, and this plat was approved with a 4-to-1 vote. That concludes the report for the December 21st meeting. A few additional things I want to note. There will be an official quick swearing in of our new mayor and council members on January 2nd at noon, but the official ceremonial swearing in will be on January 4th at 6 p.m. before our next council meeting. With that, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.